Sometimes we ask God, why am I here? Why this struggle? Why this pressure? Why does it feel so hard when I'm trying to do the right thing? But what if your difficult situation is not a punishment, but a placement? God is intentional. He doesn't randomly drop his people into trouble. When God puts you in a difficult situation, he is often doing something in you, through you, and for his purpose that comfort could never accomplish. Think about it. Strength is not built in ease, it's built in resistance. Faith is not developed when everything makes sense. It grows when you must trust God without explanations. Difficulty becomes the classroom where God teaches lessons you wouldn't learn anywhere else. Your situation may be uncomfortable, but it is not uncontrollable. God is still sovereign, he is still present, and he is still working even when you can't see it. Sometimes God allows pressure because pressure reveals what's inside. It exposes fear, but it also reveals faith. It shows us where we truly depend on God instead of ourselves. And here's the key. God doesn't waste difficulty. What you're walking through today could be preparing you for influence tomorrow. The struggle might be shaping your character, sharpening your obedience, and positioning you to help someone else who will one day face the same challenge. So don't quit just because it's hard. Don't assume God has left because it hurts. The very place you want to escape may be the place God wants to use to grow you. If God puts you there, he will sustain you there, and he will get glory from it. Difficulty is often divine placement, not an accident or a mistake. When life becomes hard, our first instinct is usually to ask what went wrong. We assume that trouble means we missed something, failed somehow, or stepped outside of God's will. But many times, the opposite is true. The difficult place may be exactly where God intended you to be. God does not work randomly. He is deliberate, purposeful, and precise. If he allows you to be placed in a challenging situation, it is because that location serves a greater purpose than your comfort ever could. We often think that God's presence should automatically lead to ease, clarity, and smooth progress. But throughout life, growth rarely happens in comfort. Difficulty forces us to slow down, pay attention, and depend on something greater than ourselves. When everything is easy, we rely on our own strength, intelligence, and resources. But when the situation becomes hard, we are reminded of our limitations. That is when divine placement becomes visible. God positions people where their self-sufficiency ends so that their trust in him can begin. A difficult situation can also be a place of preparation. Before responsibility comes readiness, and readiness often requires pressure. Just like raw material must be refined before it is useful, people must be shaped before they can carry greater purpose. The difficult place becomes the workshop where patience is developed, obedience is tested, and character is strengthened. What feels like delay or opposition may actually be training. God may be preparing you for something bigger than you can currently handle. And the only way to get you ready is through challenge. Divine placement also changes how we interpret resistance. Resistance does not always mean you're going the wrong way. In fact, resistance often shows up when something valuable is at stake. If the situation were meaningless, there would be no opposition. Difficulty can be a sign that your presence in that place matters. God may have positioned you there to learn something essential, to influence others, or to experience transformation that could not happen elsewhere. Another reason difficulty can be divine placement is because it reveals priorities. Hard situations strip away distractions and force clarity. When life becomes challenging, you quickly learn what truly matters and what does not. Comfort can blur focus, but difficulty sharpens it. God sometimes places us in uncomfortable situations to realign our hearts, adjust our motives, and refocus our dependence. The placement is not meant to destroy you, but to direct you. Divine placement also teaches obedience without full understanding. Often, God does not explain why he allows certain hardships. He calls people to trust him even when the path does not make sense. Difficulty becomes the environment where faith moves from theory to practice. It is easy to say you trust God when outcomes are predictable. It is much harder to trust Him when the situation feels uncertain and uncomfortable. That trust, however, is exactly what God is developing. It is also important to understand that divine placement does not mean God caused every painful detail. Living in a broken world means challenges will come. However, God is able to use any situation for His purposes. Placement is not always about causing the hardship. Sometimes it is about how God chooses to work within it. He can take what was meant to harm, discourage, or delay and turn it into a place of growth and direction. Finally, divine placement reframes how we see ourselves in difficulty. Instead of seeing yourself as stuck, you begin to see yourself as positioned. Instead of asking only how to escape, you begin to ask what you're meant to learn. This shift in perspective changes everything. The difficult situation no longer feels pointless. It becomes meaningful. When you understand that God places people intentionally, even in hard environments, you stop seeing difficulty as failure and start recognizing it as part of a larger plan unfolding step by step. Pressure produces growth in ways that comfort never can. When life is easy, there's little reason to change, stretch, or mature. Ease allows habits to remain unchallenged and faith to stay shallow. But when pressure enters the picture, it demands a response. Pressure forces decisions, reveals weaknesses, and pushes a person beyond what feels safe. Growth is rarely comfortable because it requires leaving what is familiar in order to become what is necessary. In everyday life, nothing develops strength without resistance. Muscles grow only when they are strained. Skills improve only when they are challenged. In the same way, inner strength, faith, and character are formed under pressure. Difficult situations apply weight to the soul, testing endurance and persistence. That weight may feel overwhelming at first, but over time it builds spiritual resilience. What once seemed unbearable slowly becomes manageable, not because the pressure lessens, but because the person grows stronger. Pressure also clarifies belief. Many people say they have faith, but pressure reveals what that faith is really anchored in. When circumstances are favorable, belief can rest on outcomes. When pressure arrives, belief must rest on trust. In challenging seasons, there are fewer guarantees and fewer visible signs of progress. That uncertainty pushes faith deeper, moving it from surface-level confidence to a settled dependence. Pressure strips away illusions of control and teaches reliance on God rather than circumstances. Growth under pressure also reshapes character. Character is not built by intentions, but by responses. How a person responds when stressed, disappointed, or delayed reveals who they truly are. Pressure exposes impatience, fear, pride, or insecurity, not to shame, but to refine. Once exposed, these weaknesses can be addressed and transformed. Without pressure, they often remain hidden, quietly influencing decisions without being confronted. Pressure has a way of developing perseverance. Endurance is not something people naturally possess. It is learned through experience. When challenges do not resolve quickly, perseverance is formed in the waiting. Each moment of choosing to continue instead of quitting strengthens resolve. Over time, this endurance becomes a foundation that supports future responsibilities. People who have never endured pressure often struggle when life demands consistency and commitment. Pressure also produces clarity of purpose. In stressful moments, unnecessary things fall away. Time, energy, and focus become valuable resources, and priorities shift. Growth happens when a person learns to invest attention where it matters most. Pressure eliminates distractions and forces intentional choices. Through this process, people discover what they are willing to fight for, protect, and pursue. Purpose becomes clearer when comfort is removed. Another aspect of growth under pressure is humility. Pressure reminds people that they do not have all the answers. It breaks the illusion of self-sufficiency and opens a door to learning. Growth requires teachability, and teachability often comes when pride is softened by difficulty. Under pressure, people are more willing to seek wisdom, accept guidance, and acknowledge their need for help. This humility becomes a powerful catalyst for maturity. Pressure also equips people to help others. One who has grown through difficulty carries understanding, patience, and compassion that cannot be learned in ease. Growth gained under pressure creates depth. That depth allows a person to relate to others who are struggling, offering encouragement that is grounded in experience rather than theory. What was once a source of pain becomes a source of strength for someone else. Finally, pressure teaches adaptability. Life rarely follows a predictable path, and growth requires the ability to adjust without losing direction. Under pressure, people learn how to move forward despite uncertainty. They develop problem-solving skills, emotional awareness, and spiritual steadiness. This adaptability becomes essential for long-term growth, enabling a person to face future challenges with confidence rather than fear. Pressure may feel uncomfortable, but it is often the very force that shapes a person into who they are meant to become. God is present even when the situation is painful, though pain often makes his presence harder to recognize. When people experience hardship, disappointment, or loss, it is common to assume that God has stepped away or become silent. Pain has a way of narrowing focus, pulling attention toward what is missing or broken. In those moments, God's nearness is not absent. It is often working in ways that are quieter, deeper, and less visible than expected. Many people associate God's presence with positive emotions, clear answers, or immediate relief. When those things are missing, they conclude that God must be distant. But presence is not proven by comfort. Presence is proven by faithfulness. God's involvement is not dependent on how the moment feels. Pain does not cancel his attention, nor does struggle weaken his ability to act. Even when emotions fluctuate, his presence remains steady. Painful seasons often shift how God chooses to work. Instead of dramatic changes, his presence may appear through strength to endure, wisdom to make careful decisions, or peace that does not match the circumstances. These subtle signs are easy to overlook because they do not remove the pain, but they sustain the person within it. God's presence is sometimes revealed not by changing the situation, but by changing the person walking through it. Silence can be one of the most difficult aspects of pain. When prayers seem unanswered and direction feels unclear, it is tempting to believe God is no longer listening. However, silence does not mean absence. Growth often happens in quiet spaces where trust must exist without constant reassurance. God may be working behind the scenes, aligning timing, shaping character, or protecting outcomes that cannot yet be seen. The absence of immediate response does not mean the absence of care. Pain also deepens awareness of God's presence by stripping away distractions. When life is busy and comfortable, it is easy to overlook spiritual dependence. Pain slows life down. It forces reflection and honesty. In those moments, people often become more aware of their need for God, even if they struggle to sense him emotionally. That awareness itself is evidence of his nearness, drawing attention toward dependence rather than independence. Another way God's presence is experienced in pain is through provision. Strength to get through the day, clarity in moments of confusion, and resilience under emotional strain are not self-generated. These are signs of support that exceed natural capacity. When people look back on difficult seasons, they often realize they survived things they never thought they could. That endurance points to a sustaining presence that carried them even when they felt weak. God's presence in pain also corrects misunderstandings about faith. Faith is not a shield that prevents hardship. It is an anchor that holds steady within it. Pain reveals whether faith is based on expectations or on trust. When expectations fail, trust becomes the foundation. This shift deepens spiritual maturity, teaching that God's faithfulness is not measured by circumstances, but by consistency. Painful seasons also reveal that God's presence is relational, not transactional. He is not present only to fix problems, but to walk alongside people through them. Relationship deepens when there is honesty, vulnerability, and persistence. Pain opens space for raw conversations, unanswered questions, and genuine dependence. Through this, faith becomes less about outcomes and more about connection. Even when God's presence feels distant, he is still active. Feelings are real but not always reliable indicators of truth. Pain distorts perception, making it difficult to recognize what is happening beneath the surface. God may be strengthening resolve, guarding the heart, or redirecting paths in ways that only become clear later. His presence often reveals itself in hindsight, when people see how they were guided, protected, or shaped. Ultimately, pain does not signal abandonment. It highlights the depth of God's commitment to walk with people through every season, not just the easy ones. His presence remains constant, steady, and intentional, even when the journey is difficult and the road feels uncertain. Difficult situations reveal what's inside you in ways that comfort never can. When life is easy, it is simple to maintain appearances and keep weaknesses hidden. Stress, conflict, and challenges have a way of exposing the true nature of a person. These moments act like mirrors, reflecting both strength and areas that need growth. The difficulty itself is not punishment. It is a tool that brings hidden traits to light, allowing a person to understand themselves more fully. Pressa. Rhee has a way of testing patience. In ordinary circumstances, patience may seem abundant, but when faced with repeated delays, obstacles, or uncooperative situations, the depth of one's patience is revealed. People discover whether they react in frustration, anger, or anxiety, or whether they can endure calmly and steadily. These moments uncover habits and tendencies that were previously unnoticed. In some cases, it may show a need for more reliance on God or others, while in other cases, it highlights a capacity for resilience and strength that had not been recognized before. Fear is another aspect that difficulty exposes. When everything is secure, fear is often dormant, but challenges bring uncertainty and risk, revealing whether fear drives decisions or if courage can hold firm in spite of circumstances. The way a person responds under fear demonstrates inner priorities and the foundation of their trust. Difficulty strips away superficial confidence and exposes whether reliance is on self, resources, or a higher power. In these moments, true faith and fortitude are often clarified. Difficulty also reveals hidden motivations. Comfort allows people to act without much scrutiny of intent because outcomes are easily controlled. Challenges, however, test integrity. When pressure mounts, people are faced with choices that reveal what truly matters to them. Do they act selfishly or generously? Do they compromise values for convenience? Or do they uphold principles even when it is costly? Stress uncovers whether convictions are deeply held or merely performative, shining a light on the character that may not be visible in easy circumstances. Emotional resilience is tested as well. Life rarely presents a challenge without emotional consequences. Difficult situations show whether a person can process emotions constructively or whether negative feelings dominate reactions. It is one thing to feel upset in hardship. It is another to respond in a way that maintains clarity, compassion, and responsibility. Through these moments, self-awareness grows because people see patterns of reaction that need adjustment. They also discover sources of strength they might not have recognized before, like patience, empathy, or perseverance. Conflict is particularly revealing. When disagreements arise, it becomes apparent whether a person can maintain respect and fairness or whether they resort to defensiveness and pride. Difficult interactions uncover communication styles, tolerance for differing perspectives, and the ability to remain composed under provocation. These challenges act as stress tests, showing both areas of strength and areas in need of refinement. Difficult circumstances also expose spiritual depth. Faith is often untested until it is challenged. Trials reveal whether belief is grounded in experience, tradition, or personal understanding. When faced with obstacles, the heart's true dependence on God or guiding principles comes to the surface. This exposure is valuable because it identifies where growth is needed and where trust has already matured. Difficulty in this sense is diagnostic. It diagnoses the state of the soul. Another aspect of revelation through difficulty is resilience in problem solving. Challenges force creativity and adaptability, uncovering hidden talents or untapped resources. When solutions are not obvious, people see how resourceful, patient, or persistent they can be. They also recognize limits, which can be humbling but necessary for growth. Difficult situations teach both capability and humility by showing what can be managed and what requires support. Ultimately, difficult situations act like a crucible. They refine character by revealing what is authentic and exposing what is not. Strengths are recognized, weaknesses are acknowledged, and a clearer understanding of self emerges. Without these moments, people might continue with blind spots, unaware of the areas that need attention or the capacities they possess. Difficulty, therefore, is not simply a hardship to endure, it is a mirror showing what is truly inside. It is through this revelation that growth, refinement, and transformation become possible, shaping a person to be stronger, wiser, and more aware of who they really are. Your struggle has a greater purpose, even when it feels meaningless. Often people view hardship as a random inconvenience, something to survive or escape, but difficult seasons are rarely wasted. God can use every challenge, every delay, every obstacle to prepare, position, and refine you for a greater purpose. What may seem painful, frustrating, or unfair at the moment is often laying the foundation for influence, impact, and opportunity in the future. The struggle itself becomes a stepping stone, shaping both the person and the mission they are being prepared to fulfill. Struggle often develops empathy and understanding. When a person has experienced difficulty, they gain insight into the pain and challenges of others. This is not something that can be taught in theory. It is learned through experience. The person who has walked through trials is able to encourage, guide, and support someone else in a way that is genuine and informed. The very struggles that seem pointless at the time become tools to minister, lead, and inspire others. Through hardship, people develop a capacity to comfort, relate, and impact those facing similar challenges. Difficult seasons also shape character in ways that ease cannot. Struggle tests patience, integrity, perseverance, and faith. These traits are refined under pressure, producing depth and maturity. People who have never faced significant hardship may find their character untested in critical ways, but struggle exposes weaknesses and strengthens strengths, creating a foundation for leadership, influence, and responsible decision-making. The lessons learned in struggle often stay with a person long after the challenge has passed, equipping them to handle future opportunities with wisdom and grace. Purpose is also revealed through the timing of struggle. Often the very thing people struggle through is preparing them for a season ahead that requires endurance, skill, or wisdom they would not have developed otherwise. Life's delays and challenges are rarely wasted. They are preparation periods. God can shape a person's mind, heart, and abilities through these seasons so that when the opportunity arises, they are ready. What seems like a detour or obstacle is often a necessary stage of growth, ensuring that the person is fully equipped for what lies ahead. Another aspect of the purpose and struggle is the redirection it often provides. Difficult situations sometimes remove distractions, unhealthy attachments, or wrong paths, guiding a person towards something better. While pain may feel isolating or discouraging, it can also be a compass pointing toward a more fruitful, meaningful direction. What appears as a loss or setback can, in reality, be a repositioning that aligns a person with their intended purpose, ensuring that their future is built on solid ground rather than temporary convenience or comfort. Struggle also builds resilience that becomes crucial for future responsibility. People who have walked through difficult seasons develop a capacity to endure, adapt, and persevere in ways that others may not. This resilience is not only valuable personally, but it also equips a person to support others, lead through challenges, and navigate complex situations with wisdom and composure. The very hardships that Uncle Eve felt like burdens become the source of strength and insight that define a person's character and impact. Additionally, struggle often produces gratitude and perspective. When life is constantly easy, it is difficult to appreciate the value of progress, blessing, or achievement. But when a person has experienced difficulty, the triumphs, growth, and breakthroughs carry deeper meaning. Gratitude and perspective give purpose to life experiences, turning trials into testimonies. The lessons learned and the perseverance demonstrated through struggle not only benefit the individual, but also serve as a powerful example to inspire others who may be facing their own hardships. Struggle also encourages reliance on faith or higher principles. During hard
This world is endless, so wide, so far, but somehow I'm still lost in you. The streets are full of moving shadows, countless places I could go. City shining, people passing, yet I still feel so alone. Every road keeps leading nowhere, every sky feels cold and blue. In this world so vast and open, I'm still lost in missing you. The world is wide, so wide before me, but I keep losing my way. Somewhere in the endless distance, your memory makes me stay. The world moves on without us, but my heart remains untrue. For no matter where these feet may wander, I'm still lost in missing you. I have tried to outrun silence, tried to leave your ghost behind, but your name still echoes softly through the corners of my mind. The world is wide, so wide before me, but I keep losing my way. Somewhere in the endless distance, your memory makes me stay. But my heart remains untrue. For no matter where these stop searching for your face in every crowd. But until that day, this broken heart will keep calling your name out. The world is wide, so wide before me, but I keep losing my way. Somewhere in the endless distance, your memory makes me stay. The world moves on without us, but my heart remains untrue. For no matter where these feet may wander, I'm still lost in